want to look at market and you want to know what's happening in it, but you're thinking to yourself, hey, I'm new to this stuff, it's hard for me, what's going on? Wouldn't it be nice if there was a simple method that we could look at that would be consistent between charts every time that we do this thing? Something that would give us a kind of handle on the larger time frames, the movements overall, and what we could expect in terms of shorter time frames and how you trade this thing. Perhaps if you're looking intraday, and perhaps if you're looking for swing. Wanting to understand what the trend is in the current market, while also wanting to understand where the opportunities lie right here for us right now. One way of doing that could be looking at the Bollinger Bands. At any given time, with the Bollinger Bands, you're wanting to see if we're tracing towards the top side. Are we tracing towards the downside? Are we hugging the Bollinger Band like we did here on the AMC chart between the 24th of August up to the 13th of September with a nice trace of that line towards the top side? Are we tracing it towards the downside like we did over here from the 1st of July down to the lows on the 15th of July? During those couple of different week periods there, you can see that during that time frame, the prices like to stick there. The next question you'd be asking is, well, are we moving between the zones? And if we are, what's the significance of those zones? You have a lower zone and an upper zone. The upper zone is obviously more bullish than the lower zone more bearish than the upper zone, divided by that median line in between. Well, what is that median baseline of this Bollinger Band? Well, the median baseline of the Bollinger Band is simply put the 20 simple period moving average, and that gives you an indication of trend. The moving average itself a sort of lagging indicator. Well, and is the Bollinger Band itself a sort of lagging indicator? Well, yes and no, because one of the other functions of the Bollinger Band is looking at the upper and lower lines, which are standard deviation points away from the moving average. And understanding moving averages and considering them simply to be a lagging indicator is certainly a less sophisticated and perhaps inaccurate way of doing so. The Bollinger Bands incorporating the baseline 20 period simple moving average give us that impression by showing us, you know, where the prices are in relationship to that moving average, i.e. where the price is currently compared to where it has been on average. And therefore as well, with regards to standard deviation, we know that prices move. They will always move up and down, and that in general life, as the Greeks discovered more than 2,000 years ago, more than 3,000 years, 4,000 years ago, that there is of course a natural stochastic which can happen to anything, and things do tend to revert towards the mean. Therefore, when things move beyond the standard deviation points, it's at a time when you might think to yourself, well, hey, the lagging so-called indicator of the 20 period simple moving average is that far away from where the current prices are that this is beyond the typical movements of a price. More than 95% of the time it tends to revert back from that point towards at least the standard deviation point. If we go back above the standard deviation point, i.e. either the upper or lower lines of the Bollinger Bands, then at that point, of course, we are moving towards the mean. It's a question then at that point of whether or not we begin to trace the Bollinger Band in the direction of that trend and that standard deviation movement, or if we correct up towards the median line and remain bearish below the moving average, or indeed recapture and move above the moving average, therefore anticipating perhaps a move towards the upper line. That is what the Bollinger Band will tell us, and in 2 minutes we'll take a look at the chart. 87, we've dropped down a wee bit here in AMC. There's the 4 hour time frame, not the 24. Maybe I suggested it was at the start. No, it is the 24. Sorry, I was reading it wrong. So that's correct. So that's the 24 hour time frame. This year, obviously, we're down at the lower end. You can anticipate, in a sense, a reversion towards the mean, but you'd be looking up and saying that as long as we're below $44, we're in a bearish mindset on this one. Down there onto the 4 hour time frame, and you can see that at this one, we're also down at the lower end, and indeed, it is tracing this down the way. When it moves outside, it comes back up towards the line, but of course it's tracing it so far, so we're waiting to see, can we get a proper turnaround? Movements away from the standard deviation, be it sideways or towards the top side, is whenever you start to see that turnaround in positivity. Right here, right now, if you're trading with the trend, it's obviously in the shorter term time frames towards the downside. Then you can keep going down here in the Bollinger Bands, and you can see, oh look here on the 1 hour time frame, now we're starting to get a different contrasting picture. We were tracing this towards the downside, like I said, came up here and touched off the median line, remained in that bearish mentality before dropping down and continuing to trace the Bollinger Band towards the downside. Coming up here, we're looking to see, can we actually test this on the 1 hour time frame, being below $40, and of course where that lower gap was, which we ultimately filled in somewhere like over there or whatever. We of course are remaining in a bearish stance. You want to see in a positive stance, then of course moving towards the top side of the Bollinger BB. That's what we want to see. So doing the same thing then. There you go, my friend, whoever it was that was asking me, can you do this? Can we have a way? I still find it hard to look at charts. 24-hour time frame. We're back in here on AHT. Mama Gemma just suggested it in the chats. Thanks so much for the $5, by the way. And Danko Bar, member for 3 months. Bing bong, the price is wrong. And it is the price wrong on this one. Over there, 1484, doing pretty good above the basis line of the Bollinger Bands on the 24-hour time frame. We've come back here. We want to see this close up above that 1470 price point. But we could also look towards 240 minutes, which of course is 4 hours, and see how we're doing next. Boom, we're into the bullish area on this one. Can we then therefore look towards the upper area? We already identified targets from this one in the past, going up towards 1560 here, etc., brings us up towards that $16 price target. We can see that, of course, that's in it around about where the top end of this has been resisted at so far. For anybody that doesn't understand Bollinger Bands, then you can take a look at this section right here that I've just circled around to get a better idea of that. You see, we're always going to be somewhere near this lagging so-called indicator of the 20 period moving average, but the prices themselves will tend to have a standard deviation movement beyond it of around about 2 deviation points of that standard on the on sort of more or less all time frames. Here you can see we came up towards the top end, and that has been resistance for us. Here we have it, and if we want to get up there again, we'd be moving up. Combine that with the technical analysis that I've already done on this so far today already, amazingly as it is, and moving up above $16 changes conditions, does it not? We could of course see retracements at that point, but then if we can trace that up the way, then super duper, that's when the trend is really kicking in. And can we start to see that with the sideways movement we've had so far? It means that the 20 period moving average is not going to struggle too much to actually get that turnaround if we're looking for it, because a number of these periods in the past will be above that line, giving you that positivity overall on average over the 20 periods that we're looking for. So that would be decent, and that's where we are with that one, you know. So there's plenty of this sort of thing that you can keep doing. That's the 4 hour time frame, and we go down towards the 1 hour time frame, and here we have it at the top side. We want to continue tracing away up the way, tracing up the way. So just like we looked at over on AMC, when we're talking about tracing this thing towards the downside and movement's potential towards the basis line, then tracing it down the way there afterwards, what you're looking at over there is to see, can we continue to trace this towards the top side? We're bearing in mind that any movements outside of this have got a 95% chance of coming back at the very least to retest the basis, the upper line of the Bollinger Band, with the potential of course to go on and retest the basis line thereafter, as we saw over here. In fact, testing it and then breaking it, and then of course coming down, pushing outside. Here we had it pushed outside, 95% chance you come back up, and we did. And then on up towards testing that basis line, came back down towards the lower line, on up, tested the basis line, broke through. You can see the Bollinger Band. The Bollinger Band itself is just very simple, 20 period moving average, and these two lines using standard deviation mathematicals to plot them onto the charts. 1496 so far. Is this early exuberance going to be too much for us to handle? At the minute, it's not too much to handle. It isn't. Over the course of this afternoon, we could see the prices going up as far as 1560, like greatly changing things. In the 2 hour time frame, you can see that we're just arriving up towards these areas, and it starts to push up. Every time the candles open and close, you're going to get a bit more breathing room in terms of the current trend that you're operating in when you're looking at Bollinger Bands. So as you see the prices evolve, they will of course catch up. We can expect the basis line of the Bollinger Band to move up like this as the prices themselves move up, giving you greater opportunities to have retests of this thing while you're continuing the trend, thus leading to this trace of the line. If this is your line, the trace of the line towards the top side that we talk about when we're looking at them. This is, if you like, the advanced Bollinger Band course. This is how you do things, and this is in part a response to somebody who said to me, I want to have a way of looking at the charts that I can look at that is a simple method to look at them and understand what's going on across the time frames and understand where the charts are moving. And this is how you would do it, my friend. This is one of them. If you want to use the Bollinger Bands correctly, then this is how you use them. This is it. I don't care what John Ballinger says. If John Ballinger says it's raining, because this is the way to do it if you're looking at doing it as a professional would.